Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Simple Knit podcast. My name is Eleanor and you can find me on Instagram as Simple Knit Co and here on YouTube where I hang out and share all of the things that I have been making recently, mostly knitting. So if you're down for a bit of crafty show and tell, welcome along. If this is your first time checking out the podcast, it's lovely to meet you. And a big hello to all of my lovely returning viewers who come back episode after episode and share all of the cool things that they have been making. So I hope you're all keeping well. It is around the middle of the day on a Sunday here in Brisbane where I'm from. It is barely cool enough to be wearing a jumper, but I'm persevering for the sake of the podcast. It's a little bit sweaty. It's been a kind of weird overcast, sometimes raining, sometimes sunny kind of weekend, so it's either cold or humid, and now it is humid. So the light is consistent though, so I figured it was the perfect time to sit down and share some making with you. So pour yourself a drink. I've almost finished my coffee, and let's talk about the making, which is what we're all here for. So I will talk about the jumper that I'm wearing. It's one of my latest finished objects. It's a little sweaty because it is October, but I really wanted to share it with you because I'm absolutely in love with it. So this is the Rose by Josée Paquin. It was originally published in an issue of Amirisu magazine about 5 years ago. It's issue 8, which I'm obsessed with all of the patterns in that issue, but obviously it's available for individual purchase now. It is really lovely. So it is a knit in an 8-ply or DK weight yarn in 2 colours. The yarn that I used is Fibresmith hand-dyed DK Merino. In this colour is called Granite Terrazzo, and then this one is Northern Moss. It's a really dark kind of khaki green. It is coming up a little bit more dark on camera than it is in real life. It is definitely a little bit more olivey in non-camera contrast, but yeah, I really love the way that these 2 yarns kind of contrast with each other. And yeah, I knit the size large and I used all the recommended needle sizes, and I'm just really stoked with how it turned out. I love this basket weavy texture that it has all over. Let me just lean forward. It's really, really pretty. The textures are really lovely and really fun to knit. And I also really love the way that the raglan increases are built into the pattern. So they're slightly different on the front and the back. So they're a little bit more narrow on the front. And I'll show you the back. Scratch that. It was very hard to show from the back, but it looks kind of exactly the same on the front and the back. I'm just really thrilled. The only drama that I had with this was I did run out of this first colour of yarn. I had, according to the yardage in the pattern and the yarn that I had, I should have had enough, but it was basically perfectly enough. So if one skein was slightly underweight or whatever, it's, you know, when it's the difference of only a couple of meters, it's going to happen. So what I had done when I got to the end of the second skein while I was working on the body, and so I had three skeins of the main colour and then 2 of this dark colour, and when I got to the end of the second skein I looked at how much I had left to knit and I thought, oh, I'm not convinced that I have enough yarn. So what I did was I just put the body on hold and I knit the 2 sleeves exactly to pattern. So I had made sure that my sleeves were symmetrical, and then I basically just knit the body until I ran out of yarn. So if you're eagle-eyed and really staring at the center of my body a lot, you can see that there aren't as many contrast stripes on the body as there are on the arms. They were meant to be kind of the same little pattern of stripes on the body as on the sleeves, but they happen at different points, so you're not kind of looking at one level line. So I don't think, I mean, unless I'm now pointing it out to you, it's not something that people in the real world would actually notice, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I mean, my only gripe is with myself, that my bind off, especially on the sleeves, my tubular bind off is a little bit tight. If it really annoys me in the future, I have enough of this contrast color to kind of cut off and redo the bind off, but to be honest, these are quite slim sleeves, so it's really not really a drama, and I can still roll them up and everything. It's fine. It's just being nitpicky, as I'm sure you can all relate to. But yeah, other than that, I am really thrilled with how this turned out. I think it's a really cool jumper. It is a kind of a different shape. It's a little bit more fitted, a little bit more straight than garments that I usually go for, but I just really like it. I think it looks really polished. It will look really great over a whole bunch of outfits, and I think it'll be a really nice versatile jumper to have when the weather is cooler, which will happen in approximately 6 months' time. So I have been in the evenings trying to get as much wear out of it as I can before all of the wool goes away for the sweaty summer that is coming. Although maybe not as sweaty as usual. Apparently it's going to be a slightly cooler, wetter summer than we usually have. Fun weather fact for you, but we'll see. Cooler will be relative. It'll still be very hot. But yeah, I'm really thrilled with this jumper. I highly recommend this pattern. I believe the pattern available for individual purchase now has a slightly extended size range, but don't quote me on that. As with most older Amirisu patterns, the size range is very limited, which is crap, but I believe, and as I said, don't quote me on this, I think the individually available pattern has a slightly wider range of sizes, which is very nice because this is a really cool garment, and there aren't that many projects on Ravelry, at least, knitted out of this project. That's not a sentence. There aren't that many projects on Ravelry for this pattern, which is a shame because it's really lovely, and I think it's really nice. So highly recommend this pattern. So the other project that I have been working on in the last few weeks since I last checked in is actually a finished object already. I hadn't cast this on last time I spoke to you, and it is already finished because it is this tank top which is knit up so quickly. So this is the Beach Tank by Jess Schreibstein for Mild Woman. I have knit this tank top before, and the yarn is Tina Tape by Wool and the Gang, which is also the yarn I've used to make this project before. I think the yarn and the project work really well together. It's like a worsted-ish weight yarn that is 100% lyocell, so tencel, which means it's really great for the summer. It's one of those fabrics that keeps you really cool in the summer. But it still is that worsted weight, so you get that nice drape. So it's just a basic stockinette tank top with a rib at the bottom. Sorry, the contrast is going to go bananas because this is so dark. And then the front and the back are exactly the same. I have knit this pattern before, as I said, and I've knit it in this yarn before. I knit this coral coloured one a little while ago, a few years ago now, and I wear it heaps. So I've been wanting for the last couple of summers to knit some more of these garments. So this yarn just gets softer and more drapey with wear, and I do get a whole lot of wear out of this coral one, so I figured a navy would be a really nice neutral to have in my wardrobe. So the only modifications I made from the pattern was I did do a tubular cast on for this. In this pattern you don't actually go down a needle size, you just do the ribbing on the same size as the body of the garment. So the one thing I would probably am not stoked about is because I didn't go down then a needle size for the tubular, so it's I mean, I don't know why I'm holding it up, you can't really see on camera because it's so dark, but the tubular is cast on is a little bit like loose and wobbly, but once it's on your person and around a 3D body, you're not going to be able to tell. I mean, don't call the knitting police, but I know you're supposed to go when you do a tubular cast on, what you're supposed to do is there is the ribbing needle size. Usually on the pattern there is the needle size for the body, you go down one size for the ribbing, you're then supposed to go down another additional other size for the initial tubular cast on. So for those first 2 or 4 rows of tubular that you do, you're supposed to go down in another needle size, because that keeps it really neat, because it is like a loosey goosey kind of long tail cast on. Doing it in the smaller size just makes it really neat and look really tidy. Don't call the knitting police, but I never go down an additional size from the ribbing needle size to do my tubular cast-ons. I mean, I'm already a pretty tight knitter. I never have a problem with it looking too loose or anything, so I can't be bothered. I'm sorry, I can't be bothered. As you know, as I said, the knitting police don't exist, so you can do whatever you want. It's your project. But for this, because this is a plant fibre yarn, so it doesn't have that kind of elasticity of wool, and also because for this ribbing you are not going down a needle size anyway. It's all done on the same needle size except for the I-cords. So I think that's a 5.5mm needle, which is what I used. So it just means my tubular is very loose. And as I said, it's a dark yarn. Once it's around your person, you're not going to notice that it's a bit loose and wobbly. But when I sit here in my house staring at it obsessively, I notice it. So lesson learned, you should do what the knitting instruction books say. I also, for this version, it does say when you do the front and the back, this top edge, to do a really tight bind off, which is what I did on this original one. Just a standard bind off, very tight. And I just wasn't really, it was just a bit nothingy when I looked at it. It was just a bit, it does roll over a little bit because it's just stocking it straight into the bind off. And I don't know, it just wasn't, it was just a bit blah. So my original plan was to do an I-cord bind off across the top, but that looked a bit weird too. Also probably because I was doing it on the 5.5mm needle. Maybe if I had gone down to the 4mm needle that you use for the I-cord straps, it might have looked a bit better, but whatever. I then, what I did was I did a knit 2 together bind off across the top. So that's, you knit 2 stitches, then you do a knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together, all the way across to bind it off. And it just gives a little bit more fabric to that bind off edge, because I was scrolling through people's projects of this, and some people's did have this little bit slightly almost cowly effect where the bind off edge does roll down a little bit, and I thought that looked kind of cool. It almost gives it the effect because it is rolled. I'm not going to be able to show this because of the contrast, but it almost gives like an I-cord kind of effect to the front and the back. So that's what I did. I'm not sure if I'm 100% in love with it, but it's just something fun and a bit of a different detail. And the other thing I did, which you will be able to notice, is instead of just doing straight over the shoulder straps, I knit the I-cord, a long I-cord on each of the 4 ends, and then I've tied them at the top with little bows, just for a fun little detail for this top. It also makes the straps a little bit more adjustable. Because this yarn is a plant fibre, it will stretch over time. I'm actually surprised how little this is stretched. I thought because of the weight of the yarn it would have stretched more, but it does mean if the sleeves do stretch a bit, it makes them a bit more adjustable. And I just think having those little bows on the shoulder will be a really cute detail. So I will, in an upcoming podcast, wear this so you can see what it looks like on, but you get the idea. It's just a tank top. But I highly recommend this pattern. It's really straightforward and simple. I've used it as well as kind of a jumping off point to make my own garments. A couple of years ago I made like a Christmas jumper, which if you scroll way back in the episodes you'll be able to see. And this, the basic structure of this is kind of the jumping off point I used for that garment as well. So just, as I said, worsted weight yarn on 5.5mm needles. It's a little cropped jumper, worked up so fast, and I'm really thrilled with that as well. So yeah, that is basically all the knitting that I have been doing. I do have a new cast on to show you. So I finished this garment on Friday or whatever, and I kind of just wasn't really, I have quite a few projects in the wings that I've got yarn for already, so I had a few different things to pick from for my next cast on, but I just wasn't really feeling any of them. I looked through I don't have a huge stash. Most of my yarn is, as I've said before, I'm kind of a project specific yarn purchaser. I like to know what I'm going to do with the yarn before I buy it. I don't kind of just buy it to have it. And I do have, but that being said, I have probably like a year's worth of projects in the wings all ready to go. So I have plenty to choose from. And I just wasn't really psyched for any of the projects that I mean, I want the finished garments, but I just wasn't really in the mood in the moment to cast on any of the projects I kind of have in my queue. I think in my last episode I talked about all the summer tops I want to make, and I've got yarn for all of them, but just none of them are really like getting me really fired up to cast them on. And usually as I'm casting off the project that I'm working on, I'm like, I basically, the second that stitch casts off, the next project that I've been dreaming about and obsessing over, I'm casting it on before I even weave in my ends and block the previous project. But there just wasn't anything like that, and I felt like using my hands, but I didn't really have that project that I was really psyched for. And then yesterday afternoon it was kind of cold and rainy, you know, just like cozy weather, but none of my projects were really like speaking to me. I ended up spending a few hours actually untangling some yarn from a project that's been sitting in timeout for about 2 years. So it was some really light fingering weight linen that I had originally bought to make my 10-year top. But the yarn was just too fine, it didn't work for that project, and I subsequently bought different yarn, have made that project, love it. But because it was really fine fingering weight linen, unraveling and untangling the mess of yarn was just a nightmare. So I shoved it in a bag and put it away and thought, when I know what I want to do with that yarn, I will untangle it. And I do have a plan. I want to use that yarn to make the Valentina tank top by Surrey Nordland, which is a really cute, just simple tank top that uses a fingering weight yarn held double and quite a light fingering weight yarn held double. So I think I have the yardage to make that top out of this yarn. So I sat down, put on Shutter Island and untangled some yarn yesterday afternoon. A very fun way to spend a rainy Saturday, but I just wanted to be doing something with my hands, but I couldn't decide what I wanted to make. I also then wound up some yarn to make a hat, because I thought, oh, I feel like knitting something woolly. Do I want to just crank out a hat this afternoon? But I wound up the yarn and then was like, no, I don't want to do that either. And the reason that I couldn't commit to any other project is because I had something in mind that I just have not been able to stop thinking about. So maybe it was a couple of weeks ago, a Brooklyn Tweed released they always do their big autumn collection, comes out this time of year, and this year their Tear collection has a jumper. It's called the Deliciosa by Nora Garn, and it's this very cool cable jumper that has monstera leaves on it. So you can see my very tall monstera over there. I'll just pull it up on my computer because I think you know where we're going with this. And the second I saw this jumper, and my friend Bronte, who had preview knit one of the cardigans from the collection, was saying that she has been wanting to knit this jumper as well. Okay, great. Now my PDF reader is flipped, so now you get the very exciting counterclockwise, yay, view of me just scrolling on my laptop. It's just compelling viewing. Here we go. This is the Deliciosa. Can you see that? So I don't know if you can see that. It's this amazing jumper that has, with cables, like a print of the non-fenestrated Monstera Deliciosa leaves. So kind of the lowest leaves on the plant that don't have the holes in them. That's what the leaf pattern on this jumper looks like. And it's a Brooklyn tweed pattern, so it's designed for Brooklyn tweed shelter. This pullover is made out of their button jar colorway, which is this beautiful green. And the second I saw this pattern, I love my plants. I especially love my Monstera because it's really big and I haven't killed it. I love plants, but I'm not great with them, so this one is kind of my pride and joy. And just seeing this pattern, I was like, that is just made for me. And I did actually have some yarn in my stash that I could use. So probably close to 2 years ago, I bought a stack of Knitpicks Wool of the Andes in this really gorgeous green color. The colorway is called Everglade Heather, and that's actually a really accurate portrayal on screen. It's this really bright, really like blue-based, bright jungle green. My original plan with that was to knit a Jared Flood pattern, the Svensson jumper, which he had then it was originally a men's pattern that had then been regraded and proportioned for a women's pattern. And a couple of years ago in their Christmas collection, they had packaged this pattern in and they'd knit it in a colorway of Brooklyn Tweed Arbor called Wreath, which was that really like bright leafy green. And this was a really great match, so I bought that yarn to make that jumper, and I just never cast it on. Something about it, like I love it, but I think I knew, and I bought the yarn because I loved it, but I think in my heart of hearts I knew that it just like, although I love the pattern and I love it in that really bright green, it just wasn't something that was going to fit into my style and my wardrobe. I always like to shake up my personal style, get things that maybe aren't typically, whenever I have something that I think I've settled on as my style, the like rebellious part of my nature is like, I'm going to buy something or make something completely different just to prove that I'm not what I think. I don't understand myself sometimes. I'm a 30-year-old adult, but sometimes I just don't understand why I do what I do. But I do have quite a rebellious buck wild nature that I don't like to ever, once I kind of have an idea of how my style is or what I like, I always then, that just makes me want to rebel against myself and prove that I'm always different, which is just a fun insight into my personality. We're up to 30 something episodes here, so I think we're all friends. But yeah, sometimes and I think it's always good, you know, if you like something, you should just go for it. Don't worry about what you think your style is, what you think suits you, what's flattering or a good color for you. If you like something, just go for it. That's my general motto in life. But so I had the yarn for this jumper. I love this jumper. It's an all over cabled kind of fisherman style jumper. I think it's really cool, but something about it, I just never quite cast it on. And so many other jumpers have come and gone from come on and off the needle since I've had this yarn, and I just never quite cast it on, which I think is a sign that it's probably not meant to be. But it meant that I had a crap ton of this yarn, which is a gorgeous green, which is absolutely perfect for the Deliciosa pullover, which is what I did yesterday afternoon. I cast it on. So it's knit in pieces. This is the back panel. I've done the ribbing. I'm knitting there is a cropped and standard length. I looked at the length and measured it on my body, and I have quite a short torso, so the cropped length will probably sit about here, and it's designed to have a whole bunch of ease. As you can see, it's very wide. So yeah, I'm really excited. So it's not the season. We're coming into summer. I don't need to be knitting a wool jumper right now. I have summer projects that I want to work on, but sometimes you've just got to go with what you're craving and what you can't stop thinking about. So this beautiful bright green yarn is ready to go. As you can see, I've got my stitch markers in. I will probably need to print out the chart. The body pattern is only charted, so this is probably not a good project if this is your first jumper. I'd probably knit something else first. The cable pattern is charted only, and as you can see, the cable repeat is it's a 50 stitch repeat, so it's quite a long one. So I'm working from my computer screen at the moment, but that's not going to last. I will need to print that out, which I will have to do at work tomorrow. So yeah, it's I think they'd say it's like a 4 out of 5 star difficulty. Yeah, I would definitely recommend, not that I ever think that something should stop you just because it looks hard. Maybe not a first time garment knitter project, but it's going to be really cute and I really can't wait. I love green, it's my favorite color. I love plants. I'm just really excited for this project. So yeah, highly recommend looking at, I mean, Brooklyn Tweed collections are always incredible. Nora Garn's garments are all like queen of cables. I love every single pattern of hers. And they're so like well written and well crafted and just come together. I knit her the Ginsberg shrug of hers that is just like, the construction is really interesting. The way like the charts just like come together was just really, really satisfying. So I am so looking forward to be working on this. And as I said, because it's a really long cable repeat, it's definitely a knitting only, maybe with a podcast, an audio podcast on, but it does also kind of take up quite a lot of your brain, which is sometimes what you need from a project. You need something that just occupies your mind for the period of time that you're working on it. So that is what I'm working on. I ended up talking for a bit longer than I thought I would today. I thought this would be quite a short episode, but looking at the timer on my phone, clearly needed to have a chat with someone today. So feel free in the comments below, please post, tell me what you are working on. It's Halloween coming up, which is something that I really love things that are a little bit spooky. I've been watching on YouTube, they have all the old episodes of the Addams Family, like the black and white 1960s Addams Family, which is just like it is the sweetest and most charming show. I've loved it since I was a kid. Whenever we would go on holidays and stay at a holiday place that had foxtel, I remember staying up late to watch Nick at Night because they would always have the black and white Addams Family on at like 11 o'clock at night, and I would stay up late to watch it because I just loved it so much. And it's such a sweet and wholesome family show. They're just a family that love each other but are also a bit weird and spooky, which I love. So yeah, I've been watching that, enjoying all the, I mean, it's very weird to be into Halloween in Australia because it's not like cozy season outside, it is sweaty season outside. So it's definitely spring here, all the flowers are blooming, it's beautiful, but any excuse to get into anything a bit spooky is 100% what I'm here for. And last year actually I made a really good Halloween party playlist, so I might link that in the description box below. It's about just over a 2-hour playlist with a whole bunch of fun Halloween-y tunes if you're having a party or if you're just hanging out. I mean, most parts of the world, we're in the middle of a pandemic, we're not having a party, we're hanging out at home with our family. But if you and your pets and your kids are dressing up and you want a fun playlist to get you in the mood, I will link that down below. So as I said, hit me up in the comments below. Are you doing anything for Halloween? What are you making? What's happening in your part of the world? Please post. I always love to hear from you. And otherwise, hit me up on Instagram, always there for a chat. I hope you're all keeping safe and well wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye!